The most confusing part of anxious attachment is not the loneliness. It is the timing. You can feel calm while you are together, connected, laughing, held, maybe even sure for a moment. And then the next day, your body flips. Suddenly, you are scanning, you are checking, you are replaying, you are reading the air, you are looking for proof that you did not imagine the closeness. And the worst part is, you cannot explain it to yourself because the story says, nothing bad happened, so why do I feel like something bad is about to happen? That is what we are talking about today. Why the day after closeness can trigger a spiral. What is happening inside your nervous system? What is happening inside the other person if they are avoidant or inconsistent? And what you can do so you stop living in that invisible tension where you are always bracing for the next drop. Because this is not about you being dramatic. It is about your body learning a pattern. And once you understand the structure of that pattern, you stop personalizing it. You stop chasing reassurance, and you start making decisions that restore safety. If this kind of clarity helps your nervous system settle, subscribe. PsychBond is a daily decoder for psychology, relationships, and avoidant and anxious attachment patterns, so you stop guessing. Now, let us get into the core idea in a way you can actually feel. Story says, we had a great night. We got closer. We opened up. We connected. So the baseline should rise. Story says, closeness means safety. Story says, the next day should feel easier, not harder. But structure says something different. Structure says your nervous system does not bond to what you think. It bonds to what it can predict. And if closeness has ever been followed by distance in your life, your body learns that closeness is not the ending. Closeness is the setup. It learns that the most dangerous time is right after the good moment, because that is when the drop can happen. So the day after closeness becomes a checkpoint in your body. Your mind is living in the story of connection. Your body is running an older pattern of protection. That is why you can wake up and feel uneasy even if nothing has changed yet. Your system is not responding to what is happening in the present. It is responding to what has happened before. And the moment you understand this, you stop asking, what is wrong with me? And you start asking the right question. What pattern is my body trying to protect me from? Let me make this painfully practical. Scene 1. You had a connected night. They were warm. They talked more than usual. They were affectionate. They maybe said something that landed in you like a promise. I feel safe with you. I miss you. I have not felt this with others. I am glad you are in my life. You go to sleep with relief in your chest. Then, the next day, their tone is different. Maybe it is subtle. A shorter reply, a delayed reply, a vaguer plan, a little less initiative, and instantly your body tightens. The story says, be cool, do not overthink. The structure says, danger, this is how it starts. The anxious spiral is not a random flaw. It is a rapid pattern recognition system. Your nervous system is scanning for early signs of a familiar ending. Because when you have been trained by inconsistency, you do not wait for the door to slam. You try to hear it creak. You do not wait for abandonment. You try to predict it. And prediction becomes your version of control. Not because you love control, because your body hates uncertainty more than it hates pain. Pain is clean. Uncertainty keeps you on alert. Now, here is the deeper structure under the spiral. There are two forces that hit the day after closeness. The first is attachment activation. Closeness increases bonding chemicals and emotional investment. That part is normal. When you connect, your system attaches more. The second force is uncertainty detection. If your history includes closeness followed by withdrawal, your system links those two events. So after closeness, it starts looking for withdrawal. The day after becomes the moment your body asks, "Are we safe now? Or was that just a moment?" And if the other person is consistent, you settle. But if the other person is unpredictable, even slightly, you do not settle. You scan. You become hyper-aware of micro-shifts. A shorter reply feels like danger. A delay feels like rejection. A vague plan feels like being deprioritized. This is how people end up feeling anxious, even around someone they genuinely like. Because the bond is not anchored by structure. It is anchored by mood. And mood is not predictable. Now let us talk about the most important split in this episode, because it explains why the day after closeness is such a trigger. Story says, if they liked last night too, they will lean in today. Structure says, after closeness, two different nervous systems can move in opposite directions. In an anxious system, closeness creates a desire to deepen and stabilize. Your body says, "We are closer. Let us make it real. Let us raise the baseline. Let us feel safe." In an avoidance system, closeness can create a desire to regulate by pulling back. Not because the feelings were fake. Often the feelings were real in the moment. The problem is what the closeness activates. Exposure, expectation, responsibility, dependence, a sense of being needed, a sense of being seen. Some avoidance systems interpret those experiences as threat, so their body seeks the fastest relief, which is distance. And that is where the two stories collide. You interpret the day after as, "We are closer now, so I should feel more secure." They may interpret the day after as, "We got too close. I need to restore space." That mismatch creates the exact environment where anxious attachment spirals. Because your nervous system can handle many things. It cannot handle a bond where closeness increases your hope and increases their urge to withdraw. That is the loop. And if you do not name it, you end up making it about your worth. You start asking, "Did I do something wrong? Did I say too much? Did I ruin it? Am I too much? Should I text less? Should I act cooler? Should I pretend I do not care?" And that is how you start managing your personality to keep access. Now, let us go deeper into the structure. What is the spiral, actually? The spiral is a sequence. It starts with a trigger. The trigger is not always something big. It can be as small as a delayed reply, a slightly colder tone, a plan that does not lock, a shift from we to you, a sudden busyness, a lack of initiation. Then, your body interprets that trigger through a threat lens. It says, "Here we go." Then, your mind tries to reduce uncertainty. It starts replaying. It starts checking. It starts composing messages. It starts looking for proof. It starts predicting outcomes. It starts bargaining. Then you do something that temporarily lowers the tension. You might text. You might ask for reassurance. You might check social media. You might reread messages. You might stalk the timeline. That action gives you a brief hit of relief. Not because it solved anything, but because it gave you movement. And then, if the other person responds warmly, your body calls the relief love. If they respond coldly or not at all, your body calls it rejection. Either way, the loop trains itself. Because your nervous system learns that you manage anxiety through action. And if you manage anxiety through action, you will feel compelled to act every time the day after hits. That is why this can start feeling addictive. You are not addicted to them. You are addicted to relief. And the day after closeness is when relief becomes scarce. Now, let us make the structure versus story split even clearer with a second scene. Scene 2. They were present all night. They held you. They made plans in a vague way. Maybe they said, "We should do that sometime. We should travel. We should go there. We should see each other again soon." You go home, and the story says, "This is moving forward." But the next day, there is no concrete follow-through. You text, and they reply later. You ask about seeing each other, and they say, "We will see." Your body does not hear, "We will see" as neutral. It hears it as, "You are not safe." Because safety is not words. Safety is predictability. So your spiral begins. And you might think, "I am spiraling because I am needy." Structure says, you are spiraling because your body cannot settle inside a bond that does not define itself. Your nervous system is trying to force clarity from a structure that is built on ambiguity. Now, here is the part that most people never get taught. The day after closeness is not only about you. It is also about what the other person does next. If the other person has capacity, the day after closeness looks steady. They stay warm. They follow through. They initiate. They make a plan. They show consistency. They might feel nervous, but they do not punish you with distance. If the other person does not have capacity, the day after closeness often looks like one of three things. Cooling, where the warmth fades and you feel the shift. Vague, where the words stay polite but the structure disappears. Or disappear, where they go silent or busy in a way that leaves you guessing. And here is the key. The day after closeness reveals capacity faster than almost any other moment. That is why your body reacts. Your body is not only fearing loss, it is detecting a capacity test. Now let us talk about what capacity actually is in this context. Capacity is not how much they like you. Capacity is not how intense they were last night. Capacity is the ability to stay present and steady after closeness. The ability to communicate space without disappearing. The ability to follow through, and the ability to repair if they do pull back. Capacity is the ability to build a baseline, not just create a high. And if you are anxious, you have to stop measuring love by highs. The high is not the relationship. The baseline between highs is the relationship. If the baseline is uncertainty, your body will live in threat, no matter how beautiful the highs are. Now, structure versus story. Story says, the high is who they really are. Structure says, the pattern is who they are in a relationship. Story says, the day after is just your anxiety. Structure says, the day after is a data point. It is your nervous system collecting evidence about whether closeness is safe here. And this is where you reclaim power. The point is not to stop feeling anxious by force. The point is to build a relationship shape that gives your body fewer reasons to panic. Because you cannot breathe calmly in a house that keeps shaking. You can learn breathing skills, and that helps, but if the structure keeps shaking, you will keep bracing. So what do you do, practically, the day after closeness? First, you stop chasing the feeling. Most anxious people chase the feeling of last night. They try to restore the warmth. They try to protect the bond by increasing contact. But if the other person is avoidant or inconsistent, more contact often creates more withdrawal. Not because you did something wrong, but because it activates their threat response. So instead of chasing warmth, you ask for structure. Structure means you name what you need in a calm sentence and you watch what happens. You do not give a speech. You do not defend your need. You do not apologize for being human. You do not over-explain. You use one clean line. Something like, "I enjoyed being close with you. The day after, I notice things feel more distant. If you need space, tell me and give me a time you will reconnect." That sentence does two things. It protects your nervous system from guessing, and it tests capacity. A person with capacity can answer. They might not love the question, but they can handle it. A person without capacity will dodge, minimize, blame, or disappear. And that is your answer. The goal is not to win the relationship. The goal is to stop living inside uncertainty. Now, I want to talk directly to the anxious listener who hears this and feels fear. You might be thinking, if I ask for structure, I will push them away. Here is the structural truth. If a bond can only survive when you stay unclear and quiet, it is not a secure bond. It is a bond built on your self-silencing. And a bond built on self-silencing will always feel unsafe in your body, because part of you knows you are not fully allowed to exist. So, yes, asking for structure can push some people away. But the people it pushes away are the people who could only keep you by keeping you anxious. That is not loss. That is clarity. And clarity is what settles the nervous system long term. Now, let us add another layer, because not every day after spiral is caused by an avoidant person. Sometimes your body is reacting to your own internal pattern even with a decent partner. So we need to separate two cases. Case one is you are with someone consistent. They reply, they plan, they follow through. But your body still panics the day after. That often means your nervous system has a learned association between closeness and loss from past experiences. In that case, you still use structure, but the structure is internal. You ground yourself in evidence. You remind yourself of their behavior, not your fear. You do not act on the urge to check. You let the urge crest and fall. You practice what I call proof thinking. Proof thinking is when you make decisions based on patterns you can verify, not feelings you cannot trust in the moment. You ask, what is the pattern of this person? Do they follow through? Do they repair? Do they show up? If yes, then your job is to soothe your system, not to interrogate the relationship. Case 2 is you are with someone inconsistent. The day after panic is not only old trauma, it is current information. Your body is responding to a structure that is not safe. In that case, you still use proof thinking, but the proof will likely tell you something hard. It will tell you that the bond is built on spikes, not stability. And your job is to stop negotiating with instability. Now let us make this extremely practical, with 3 short scenes that show you the difference between safe and unsafe day after behavior. Scene A. Safe. You had closeness, and the next day they send a simple check-in and a plan. They say, I had a good time with you. I want to see you again. Are you free Thursday? Nothing dramatic, just steady. Your body relaxes because it can predict. Scene B. Unsafe. You had closeness, and the next day you get a late reply and no plan. You ask about seeing them and you get, we will see, or I am busy, or Not sure. Your body tightens because you cannot predict. Scene C. Repair. You had closeness, and the next day, they pull back, but they communicate it. They say, "I feel a little overwhelmed after how close we were. I am not upset with you. I need a day to settle. I will check in tomorrow evening." That is repair. That is maturity. That is a person managing their nervous system without harming yours. If you have scene A or C, your spiral can shrink over time. If you have scene B over and over, your spiral will grow over time because your body is being trained by uncertainty. Now, the most dangerous trap after closeness is what I call the self-editing trap. The self-editing trap is when you start believing the reason they pulled back is because you were too real, too open, too happy, too affectionate, too honest. So you decide to be less. You decide to be cooler. You decide to delay your reply. You decide to hide your needs. You decide to downplay your feelings. You decide to pretend you do not care. That may keep access with an avoidant person, but it will destroy you over time, because the price of access becomes self-abandonment. And your body knows. That is why you feel unsafe even when things are good, because your body can sense you are not fully yourself. Now, structure says the way out is not to be less. It is to require more structure. It is to stop paying for closeness with uncertainty. So, here are the 3 rules that protect you the day after closeness. Rule 1. Do not act on the first urge. The first urge is usually a nervous system move, not a wise move. The first urge is to check, to text, to ask, to fix. Pause. Let the urge crest. Give yourself 10 minutes of stillness. If you act immediately, you train your brain that panic is solved by chasing. Rule 2. Use one clean sentence if you need to address the shift. Not a speech, not a paragraph. One sentence that names structure. I enjoy being close with you. I need steadiness after closeness. If you need space, tell me and give me a return time. Then stop. Watch. Rule 3. Measure the response as data. Do not measure how it feels. Measure what it reveals. A person with capacity will respond with clarity and follow through. A person without capacity will dodge, minimize, blame, or disappear. And if they disappear, you do not chase the disappearance. You stop paying for closeness with anxiety. Now, let us talk about no contact for anxious people in this specific context, because many people use no contact like a weapon or like a spell. That is not what we are doing here. We are using no contact as a nervous system reset when the structure is not safe. If the day after closeness consistently turns into uncertainty, you have to stop training your body to tolerate that. No contact is not about punishing them. It is about stopping the loop. It is about stopping the cycle where closeness hooks you and uncertainty drains you. The first day of no contact will feel like you are losing oxygen. That is not because they were your oxygen. It is because your brain was using their contact as regulation. When you remove it, you feel withdrawal. The cure is not to text. The cure is to build regulation elsewhere and to face the reality of the pattern. If they come back during no contact with a tiny message, you do not treat it as proof. You treat it as a test of access. You require structure. You can say, I am open to talking, but I need to understand what changed and what will be different. If they cannot answer, You do not re-enter the loop. Now, let us address the fear behind the day after spiral, because this fear is usually what runs your behavior. The fear is, if I do not act, I will lose them. If I do not check, I will miss something. If I do not ask, I will be forgotten. If I do not reassure, they will drift. That fear makes sense if your bond is unstable. But if your bond is unstable, acting more does not create stability. It usually creates more instability because it deepens investment without improving structure. So, your job is to stop using anxious effort to build what only capacity can build. You cannot effort someone into being steady. You cannot explain someone into being safe. You cannot love someone into having repair skills. You can only choose whether you participate. Now, I want to give you a structure versus story reframe that can change how you move through the day after. Story asks, do they still feel the same today? Structure asks, what do they do after closeness consistently? Story asks, why are they like this? Structure asks, what is the cost of this pattern to my body? Story asks, how do I keep the high? Structure asks, what baseline do I require to stay? And this is where anxious attachment becomes secure. Not by never feeling anxiety, but by refusing to live inside a structure that keeps creating it. Secure people do not have magic nervous systems. They have standards. They do not negotiate with inconsistency. They do not pay for love with uncertainty. They do not keep walking into the same drop and calling it chemistry. They measure capacity. They choose peace. Now, before we close, I want to speak to the person who is listening and thinking, what if I am the one who pulls away the day after? If you are the one who goes cold after closeness, it does not mean you are evil. It means closeness triggers something in you. But if you care about people, you have to learn one skill. Communicate space with a return time. You can say, I feel overwhelmed after how close we were. I am not upset with you. I need a day to settle. I will check in tomorrow evening. That one message protects trust. It lets you regulate without harming the other person. And if you cannot do that, you will keep recreating the same heartbreak while telling yourself you just have not met the right person. The right person does not fix a regulation issue. A skill does. Now, let us close with the adult truth that your nervous system is trying to teach you. The day after closeness is not the problem. The problem is when closeness is not protected by continuity. The problem is when you feel safe in a moment and unsafe in the baseline. The solution is not to become colder. The solution is not to become less. The solution is to require a structure that allows your nervous system to settle. Ask for steadiness. Ask for a return time. Ask for repair. Watch behavior. Choose patterns over moments. And remember this, your body is not asking you to be perfect. It is asking you to be safe. Welcome to PsychBond. You're safe here.